November 2012, a 37-year-old mother and programmer named Cari Farver kissed her boyfriend goodbye, sat down with her laptop in his Omaha apartment, and was never seen alive again. Within hours, her phone began sending messages so vicious and relentless that everyone, including police, believed she'd simply snapped, walked away from her life, and turned into a dangerous stalker. For years, friends, family, and an entire small town thought they knew who Cari was. They were wrong, because the woman sending those 50,000 messages wasn't Cari at all. Cari Farver wasn't the crazy stalker the headlines would later describe. She was a funny, warm-hearted woman who lit up every room she walked into. Friends remembered her infectious laugh and easy smile. She was a skilled computer programmer, fluent in multiple coding languages, with an associate's degree from Iowa Western Community College and a solid job as a programmer analyst in Omaha. She lived in the tiny town of Macedonia, Iowa, and made the long commute each day. But the real center of her life was her 14-year-old son, Max. She rarely missed a game, a concert, or a school event. Even living with a diagnosis of bipolar disorder, she stayed on her medication, stayed stable, and built a life she was proud of. Cari even carried reminders of what mattered most inked into her skin: an Aztec sun on her back, a yin-yang and Chinese character on her thigh, and on her left foot, another symbol: mother. At the same time, 35-year-old auto mechanic Dave Krupa was starting over. Newly separated from his long-term girlfriend Amy, and now living in Omaha, Dave wasn't looking for commitment. On the dating site Plenty of Fish, he was honest, casual, no strings, seeing other people. One of those people was 37-year-old single mom and cleaning business owner Shauna Liz Golyar. From the start, she knew he was dating around. She said she was fine with it. She wasn't. Liz grew clingy, jealous, constantly calling and texting Dave, pushing for more than he wanted to give. Then came the moment that would change everything. In October 2012, a woman walked into Dave's auto shop needing work on her Ford Explorer. He noticed her immediately, confident, sharp, with a spark he couldn't ignore. A few weeks later, he saw the same woman on Plenty of Fish. Her name was Cari Farver. They met on October 29, 2012, went out to dinner, and clicked instantly. During that first date, Liz kept blowing up Dave's phone. Dave made his choice clear. He wanted to see where things with Cari could go. After dinner, Cari and Dave went back to his apartment. That's when Liz showed up to grab some things. In the hallway, Liz and Cari passed each other for maybe 10 seconds. No fight, no drama, just a glance. For Cari, it was nothing. For Liz Golyar, it was the beginning of a murder. A couple of weeks later, Cari asked if she could stay at Dave's apartment for a week while she worked on a big project at her Omaha job. It would save her the daily commute. Dave agreed. She arranged for Max to stay with her mother, Nancy, while she focused on work. On the morning of November 13, 2012, around 7 a.m., Dave kissed Cari goodbye and left for the shop. She was awake, working on her laptop. No one ever saw her alive again. Around 11 a.m., Dave got a text from Cari's phone asking if they should move in together. He was caught off guard. They'd only been dating for 2 weeks, and texted back that it was too soon. Almost instantly, the tone flipped. "Fine, I hate you. I'm seeing someone else. I never want to see you again." When Dave came home that night, every trace of Cari was gone. Her clothes, laptop, and personal items had vanished from his apartment. 2 days later, Cari's employer got a text from her saying she quit and recommending Liz as a replacement. Liz applied for the job the same day. Then the real nightmare began. Texts and emails from Cari started flooding Dave's phone. Thousands of them. Threats, obsessive rants, eerie comments that proved someone was nearby. "How's that coffee? I'm watching you." Messages arrived describing what Dave was wearing, where he was sitting, even showing photos of his car and his apartment. At the same time, Cari's mother, Nancy, received messages that sounded nothing like her daughter. Cari was a grammar-conscious writer. These texts were sloppy, cruel, full of errors. Nancy begged to hear Cari's voice. The phone never rang. Max tried to verify whether it was really his mom by sending private questions. Only she would know. No response. Holidays passed, birthdays passed, and Cari never came home. On November 16, 2012, Nancy reported Cari missing. She explained her daughter's bipolar disorder, but also emphasized that Cari was stable, medicated, and deeply devoted to Max and her job. She would not just walk away. Police didn't listen. They decided this was a voluntary disappearance. To them, it was just another case of someone going off their meds and vanishing. As long as Cari kept texting, they considered her alive and on the run. Meanwhile, in Cari's hometown, rumors spread. People whispered that she'd abandoned her son, gone crazy, and turned into a violent stalker. Her reputation was shredded while she was already dead. The harassment didn't stop with Dave. Liz also began receiving threatening messages from Cari. So did Dave's ex, Amy. The messages targeted his kids, his home, his relationships. Dave changed phone numbers again and again. It didn't matter. The messages always found him. In August 2013, Liz's house burned down. 2 dogs, a cat, and a snake died in the fire. Emails soon arrived claiming Cari had done it. Dave's gun also disappeared from his apartment. By 2014, up to 50,000 texts and 15,000 emails had been sent from dozens of fake accounts with variations of Cari's name. It was a full-time job to maintain that level of harassment, and yet there was still no sign of Cari in person. No banking activity, no job, no face-to-face conversation with anyone. The case slid onto the cold case shelf and stayed there for nearly 3 years. If you appreciate deep, fact-driven true crime breakdowns like this, where we cut through the myths and follow the digital and forensic evidence, make sure you're subscribed to Crime Nest. Liking the video, sharing it, and turning on notifications tells the algorithm to keep recommending stories that focus on victims and the truth, not cheap shock value. In 2015, 2 investigators from the Pottawatomie County Sheriff's Office, Sergeant Jim Doty and Deputy Ryan Avis, couldn't shake the feeling that something was very wrong with the Cari the Stalker story. This wasn't just a hunch. Both men had seen plenty of volatile relationships, breakups, and even genuine stalking cases. But this one didn't act like a living, breathing stalker. It acted like a script. Avis worked from one angle. Could he prove Cari was still alive? Doty worked from the other. Could he prove she was dead? They basically divided the universe into 2 possible realities and decided to attack both at once. If Cari was alive, her digital footprint, documents, or eyewitnesses should point somewhere. If she was dead, there would be a moment where her life just stopped. It didn't take long for the first big clue. Avis pulled her financial records and saw something chilling. For more than 2 years, Cari's bank accounts had not moved. No rent, no food, no gas, no bills. No small purchases at convenience stores. No random late-night Amazon orders. No hotel charges. Adults don't just disappear and spend zero money. Even people on the run usually buy something. At the same time, Avis and Doty spoke at length with Nancy. She brought not only memories and photographs, but physical paperwork she'd held onto because in her gut, she knew something was wrong. Among those items was a photo of a $5,000 check supposedly from Cari, paying Liz for furniture, but signed in Liz's own name, Shauna Golyer. Think about that. A check allegedly written by Cari, but somehow bearing Liz's name as if she were both the buyer and the seller. It looked more like a prop in a poorly planned scam than a real transaction. Now, the 2 rival women in Dave's life weren't strangers on opposite sides of a love triangle. They were suddenly linked on paper. That single detail turned the narrative on its head. Instead of Cari versus Liz, detectives started viewing it as Liz versus Cari's entire identity. To make sense of the chaos, investigators brought in Special Deputy Anthony Cava, a digital forensics expert who would ultimately donate thousands of hours to the case, even delaying his own brain surgery to keep working. That tells you how personally he took this story. He wasn't just chasing data, he was chasing justice for a woman who had been digitally puppeteered even after death. Cava went back to the phone downloads collected years earlier, but never properly analyzed. These weren't neat little folders labeled evidence. They were messy, partial downloads, old extractions, scattered emails, screenshots, and raw logs from multiple devices. As he dug into metadata, deleted files, and IP logs, a disturbing pattern emerged. The Cari messages were coming from Liz. He found that many of the emails from Cari were sent from IP addresses tied directly to Liz's home and devices. Some accounts that were supposedly controlled by Cari had recovery emails and phone numbers that pointed straight back to Liz. Background data showed that Liz would often log in and out of multiple accounts in rapid succession. like an actor changing masks backstage. She had set up more than 24 fake accounts using variations of Cari's name. She used services that let her schedule messages so they would appear to arrive when she was physically with Dave, proving, in his mind, that Cari had to be somewhere else. Imagine how convincing that is. You're sitting next to Liz on the couch, and at that exact moment, a message comes in from Cari describing what you're doing. You look at Liz's phone. Nothing. She looks terrified, just like you. To a normal person, that looks like airtight proof, but to a digital forensics specialist, it looks like a stage performance. Kava also discovered something else. Photos on Liz's devices taken a month before police officially found Cari's Ford Explorer abandoned near Dave's apartment. Liz knew where the vehicle was before law enforcement did. These weren't just casual snapshots. They included angles and details that suggested someone was examining the car, not just passing by it. When combined with timing and location data, it placed Liz in suspicious proximity to the SUV long before anyone should have known where it was. The fingerprint found in the SUV, the only one that didn't belong to Cari, was finally matched to Liz as well. Taken alone, each piece might be dismissed. Maybe she touched the car once. Maybe she found it by accident. But when you line up the fake accounts, the IP addresses, the timing of the messages, and the photos of the SUV, the picture becomes clear. Liz wasn't being stalked by Cari. Liz was pretending to be Cari. On December 4th, 2015, Liz walked into the sheriff's office to file a harassment report against Dave's ex, Amy. She claimed Amy was now the one tormenting her. To an investigator, that's a huge pattern red flag. The same person who's always at the center of the drama suddenly has a brand new villain. She allowed investigators to download her phone again. Now that they knew what to look for, the mask began to slip. Hidden messaging apps, overlapping login times, and recycled phrases all began to connect Liz not only to Cari, but now to Amy as well. The next day, Liz shot herself in the thigh at a park and claimed Amy had ambushed her with Dave's stolen gun. Detectives suspected it was self-inflicted, but they played along and asked Liz to help them get confessions from Amy. This was a tactical move. If Liz was the puppeteer, giving her more strings to pull might reveal even more of the show. Liz took the bait. Over the next year, she sent 13 emails to investigators, allegedly from Amy, admitting to murdering Cari. These weren't vague, panicked messages. They read more like scripted monologues, detailed, dramatic, and dripping with inside knowledge. Those emails contained details that had never been made public. That Cari was stabbed in her own vehicle, that her body was wrapped, burned, and dumped in trash bags, and that she had a yin-yang tattoo on her hip. That tattoo was something only someone who had seen Cari's body up close would know. It hadn't been released to the press. It wasn't floating around on social media. Every single one of those emails was traced back to Liz's devices, IP addresses, device IDs, and login records all pointed to the same person. At this point, Liz wasn't just impersonating Cari. She was impersonating Amy, impersonating a killer, trying to frame yet another woman for her own crime. Every new lie she created added another digital trail leading directly back to her. Even with all this, prosecutors still lacked a body or a clear crime scene. In many murder cases, the body tells the story: cause of death, time of death, injuries, and sometimes the killer's DNA. Without that, defense attorneys can argue, maybe she's still alive. Maybe this is all just harassment. Then Dave remembered an old tablet he still had, one Liz had used years earlier. It was sitting in storage, basically forgotten. Investigators pulled the micro SD card and handed it to Kava. Buried in thousands of deleted thumbnails, he found them. Photos of a dead woman's foot and thigh. On the top of the foot was a Chinese character. Nancy confirmed it. The same tattoo on Cari's left foot. The symbol for mother. These weren't accident photos. They weren't medical images. They looked like someone had stood over the body, camera in hand, and deliberately documented their victim. Classic trophy photos taken by a killer who wanted a private record of what they'd done. A medical examiner confirmed the foot belonged to a deceased person. The lack of circulation, the coloration, the way the body presented, all pointed to death. Now they knew. Cari Farver had been murdered, and Liz had taken trophy photos of her body. That answered one of the investigation's biggest questions: not just who was sending the messages, but why Cari herself had never appeared in person after November 2012. A new forensic search of Cari's Ford Explorer sealed the case. This time, investigators removed the passenger seat down to the foam. Hidden deep inside was blood that DNA testing later confirmed as Cari's, with odds of it belonging to anyone else calculated at 1 in 100 billion. That SUV, once written off as just a missing vehicle, was actually the primary crime scene. The interior told the story the messages tried to bury. Cari had been attacked there, bled there, and never walked away from that car alive. On December 22, 2016, more than 4 years after Cari vanished, police arrested Liz Golyar at her home and charged her with first-degree murder and second-degree arson. Her bail was set at $5 million. The victim of stalking, the woman who had walked into the sheriff's office again and again claiming to be harassed, was now in handcuffs. In January, Liz waived her right to a jury trial, hoping that a judge might be more hesitant to convict without a body. It was a calculated move. A jury might be swayed by emotion and the horror of the digital harassment campaign. A judge, she likely believed, would focus on the lack of a recovered body and traditional murder weapon. It was a gamble that failed. The bench trial began in May 2017 and lasted 10 days. Dave testified, reading only a fraction of the 12,000 emails he'd received from Cari. Even just hearing small portions was overwhelming. The sheer volume of hate, obsession, and control coming from those messages painted a picture of someone who was relentless and methodical. Nancy testified about the tattoos and the messages that never sounded like her daughter. She talked about the Cari she knew, the careful texter who used punctuation and proper grammar, the loving mom who would never abandon her son, the woman who would never go years without hearing her boy's voice. Kava spent days walking the court through the digital forensics. This wasn't a flashy TV-style testimony. It was painstaking. IP logs, timestamps, account recovery information, Wi-Fi connections, file metadata. But brick by brick, he built the wall around Liz. The defense called no witnesses. They leaned on the missing body, missing weapon, and lack of eyewitnesses. Their argument boiled down to reasonable doubt. How can you be sure? What if she's alive out there somewhere? What if this is all a misunderstanding? But the judge saw through it. 14 days later, he delivered his verdict. Cari Farver had not vanished by choice. She had been murdered. He found Liz Golyar guilty of first-degree murder and second-degree arson. In the gallery, people applauded. Nancy cried with relief. Years of being forced to listen to people call her daughter a stalker, a danger, a monster. Finally, publicly, officially, someone in authority said, "No, that story was a lie." "She's got her name back," Nancy said. "It's not tarnished anymore." Liz was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, plus additional time for arson. Cari's body has never been found. For many families, that missing piece is a permanent wound. There's no gravesite, no specific place to visit where you know your loved one rests. But Nancy and Max at least had what so many families never get: the truth, a conviction, and public acknowledgement that Cari was a victim, not a perpetrator. But her story didn't end in that courtroom. Her son Max went on to graduate from Iowa State University with a degree in software engineering and now works as an application developer, following the path his mother once walked in tech. In a way, he's carrying her legacy forward line by line, project by project, building the kind of career she was building when her life was stolen. The investigators who refused to let the case go cold also created the Cari Farver Memorial Scholarship at Iowa Western Community College, giving annual support to students in information technology. That means every year, students who may never have heard of Cari by name still benefit from her story, from the determination to prove who she really was. For years, the world believed a lie, that Cari Farver was a violent, unstable stalker. In reality, she was a victim of one of the most disturbing, sustained campaigns of digital impersonation and psychological terrorism in modern true crime. Her case is now a warning for detectives and digital forensic teams. If you only trust what comes through a screen, you can be manipulated. You have to look at the human being behind the messages, or in this case, the human being who wasn't behind them. At the heart of this case is one brutal question: how far will someone go to erase another person's life just to keep control? Liz didn't just kill Cari, she stole her voice, her identity, and her reputation, turning a loving mother into a crazy ex-myth, while the real woman was gone and forgotten. She weaponized technology and stigma to hide in plain sight. Because of determined investigators, digital forensics, and a family that never gave up, the truth finally came out. Cari got her name back. If you want more breakdowns like this, where we follow the tech, the records, and the real human cost, support Crimedesk by liking, subscribing, and turning on notifications. Drop a comment. What do you think was the biggest mistake in this investigation? And what red flags around Dave and Liz do you think people missed? Thanks for watching Crimedesk. Stay safe, stay curious, and I'll see you in the next one.